Well, when it comes to Salvia divinorum, I have many things to say. Salvia divinorum, or Sage of the Gods, Sage of the Divinators, Aztec Sage, or Magic Mint, is a very interesting tropical shrub, or subtropical if you want. Um, it grows to about zero point 0.5 to from about zero point 0.5 to 1.5 meters in the vegetative phase, or 1 to 2, rarely 3 meters in the generative phase, meaning when it's flowering. So it has these really long, tall flowers, which are purple or violet, by the way. The stem has a square cross section, pretty interesting if you ask me, and elliptical leaves with sawed edges. The active ingredient is salvinorin A, or one of the active ingredients. The most researched about this plant is salvinorin A, aka opioid receptor agonist, unlike LSD or psilocybin or N,N-dimethyltryptamine or 5-MeO DMT or dimethyltryptamine, which are tryptamines, and it's considered the most potent natural hallucinogen by amount used to compared to the strength of effects. It originally comes from the Sierra Mazateca in Oaxaca, Mexico, and was, or still is, or the most used by the Mazatec people in a shamanic way and context. It was researched by R. Gordon Wasson and Albert Hoffman, which are, as you probably know, pioneers of the psychedelic research movement, and it is one psychedelic or psychoactive plant that I'm personally very fond of. I personally made many very positive um, observations about this plant, and I had many experiences with this plant. Unlike most people that use it today, not in a not in extract form, but in just the dried leaf material smoked. And in this talk, I want to talk a little bit about my experiences with this plant and my observations and thoughts about it. Although all I say is at this point not scientific research, not even ethnobotanical, because I have not reached that part in my life where I'm able to do active official research on these matters. But I still thought I was gonna talk about this matter because I already have made a few very interesting and very strong experiences, or had very strong experiences with this substance, which I wanted to share with you today. So nothing gets lost by time. But the first time I got into, or I got hands on plant material of this kind was when I was visiting a cannabis expo in Vienna, where I live, where there was one stand with ethnobotanical plants. And in the middle of peyote cacti and huachuma, San Pedro, there were a few salvia plants. So I took one of them home, but any efforts of growing them until the point of my first experience with them unfortunately failed miserably. They just didn't want to grow in my presence. They always died off, and I only did um, I only had two tries with it because I didn't want to kill so many of these plants, um, because they are in fact something very special, and I didn't want to waste that. But then I found out that you can legally buy plant material or dried leaves of this incredibly powerful substance. officially sold as incense, but because they cannot sell them as smoking products because there's no license for any smoking products other than CBD cannabis and tobacco, of course, and some special blends of herbs that got licensed for that, but Salvia divinorum is not one of those. And at the counter where I bought them, in an official shop in Vienna, I was asked if I really knew what I was doing with that. Because, and they insisted that I told them what I was expecting of it before they told me what it actually did, because they wanted to see if I knew what I was getting into. And I obviously told them yes, that I know that it's a very powerful psychoactive substance, psychedelic even, and that it's nothing to just mess around with. And they seemed happy with that answer and sold me a bag of about 5 dried grams of that stuff. 5 dried grams. As McKenna with mushrooms. Just occurred to me right now. But as soon as I got home, I pulled out my bong, which is the best way to smoke the plant material, because you need to keep applying the flame to it. You should never take the flame away from it while drawing on it, because just the smoldering plant material itself wouldn't be hot enough for the salvinorin A to vaporize, or vaporize is the right term. So you wouldn't get the effects like that. So a joint made from it would not work. It just wouldn't work. And a bong also has the long part where you can accumulate a lot of smoke before you inhale it, or while you inhale it as well, so you get the most smoke, because this substance only works a very short duration of time, so you really have to inhale as much as you can in as short of a time as possible. And the first effects I got was after inhaling a really big lungful of smoke. I noticed that I didn't notice at first that my point of view started shifting to the left of me. And I remember that I kept thinking, I'm smoking, he's smoking, he's smoking. And then I realized, no, of course, there's nobody else here. I'm alone. There can't be somebody else smoking. That's me that's smoking right there. And at that moment, I shifted right back into my body again. And that was the time that I took the second big hit. And immediately the aquarium right in front of me, or right across the small room in front of me, turned into a city made out of neon lights. I knew it was an aquarium, but it looked like a city made of neon lights. And then I took the next hit, or the next small series of big hits. I'm not exactly sure how many I took in general, but at that point there was this entity, not in my physical reality around me, but it started to talk to me, but using my own thoughts. In a way, like, how to explain it? Imagine somebody says something to you, and your mind processing that just having been said, but without somebody saying something in the physical reality at all. So just the process of integrating that into your own thoughts. just as if somebody just said something without having said anything at all. And this is where it gets weird. It introduced itself as the entity named Mother Salvia, the plant spirit of this, or the spirit of this plant. And it kept saying that, or you know how I described how it talked to me in the same way, but it kept insisting that it is the spirit of this plant. And I'm naturally skeptic about things like that, so I still wouldn't say that this is the truth and this is exactly what it is, but this is what it itself told me. And then it went on to say, the path that you are taking in life is the right path. Keep going on that path. Only, or no, of course not only good, but good is going to happen on that path. And this is what took me, or this is what reassured me on my path, and I'm still on that path right now. And it's the path that's taking me into ethnobotany, ethnomycology, ethnopharmacology, ethnology in general, and research on shamanism and all of that. And at this point, I want to say, I forgot to say that the immediate first thing I felt was like being hugged, but extremely tight around the whole body, but in a pleasant way somehow. I just wanted to say that because it's information as well. And as fast as this entity emerged out of wherever it came from, it vanished again. But I again forgot to say that when I closed my eyes, I was able to see a figure, which the outline of which I could draw. It was this one face looking at me with two faces coming out of the same head into left and right of it. And I'm sure on the other side, if it has another side, there would have been another face as well. Like there's pictures and paintings of that, which I think I only saw that, or I'm pretty sure that I only saw them afterwards when I looked into this matter. But you know, this typical. I think some people call it a goddess or something like that, but or some people even encountered it on DMT. I think I've heard, but I don't want to say that that's what people encountered on DMT at all, because I haven't experienced N,N-dimethyltryptamine, and by what people say about it, I'm sure it is extremely different, vastly different. It's if this is one world, this is a whole nother universe, you know. But this was the first experience with it, and the first time I made contact with Salvia divinorum, or the sage of the gods. And the second time was when a friend of mine from the United States asked me to get the universe's opinion. At that time I was deep into shamanism, so that was my kind of thing, to give me some information for her. So I went and asked Salvia, because I knew Salvia was something positive for me, something different that I could talk to and get information from, apparently. And as soon as I smoked it, again the same way as before, I began to receive pictures in my head upon asking to give me something for her, or some information for her. Of course, as I closed my eyes, because this time I thought I'd close my eyes. I don't know exactly why I did that, but apparently it was the right thing to do. And I saw two arches with another arch on top, like, you know, stone arches, like in the ruins of an ancient Roman aqueduct or something like that. And then I saw many, many, many walls in front of each other, like one wall and another wall behind it, and so on, a fairly long distance, and those arches behind it. And when I went to talk to her about that, she said, and I didn't know that at the time because we didn't talk that much before, that arches always have, well, she has always been very fond of arches. Like many people are fond of many things. For her, it was arches. And she felt like, and in the next couple of months, she again and again felt like she was breaking down psychological walls in her mind, each time getting a little bit closer to mental freedom. So this is something that Salvia divinorum told me about, or for somebody else, and it in the same session, but distinctly not directed for her. It also told me, or it also showed me some pictures that I'm still trying to interpret now. For example, a vast array of completely different mandalas, a starving African child lying down with its head, well, with his head down in a empty greenhouse, and the other ones I don't recall right now. But which are, I mean, especially the second one I said, or I told you, is an incredibly strong picture if you think about that. An empty greenhouse with a starving African child in it is something to really think about. There's a deep message in there that I still haven't quite got until now. But the third and a half time, because I scratched the surface of it. I scratched the surface of this substance again in between the last two times, but the third real time I used the substance was the most mind-boggling and incredible one yet. And that was when a friend of mine from India asked me to ask the substance a very personal, very important question. And I'm not going to disclose what that question was or what the answer was directly here, out of the sake of our own privacy, and it being a very, very, very personal matter. But I sat down, I turned off all the lights, I just lit one candle in front of me, and this time I used a pipe, and into that pipe I put leaves that the plant shed by itself, which apparently are far stronger and far richer in salvinorin A content than just leaves picked from the plant and dried and smoked like that. So I sat there and smoked the plant matter, keeping the fire always on top of the glowing plant material, and immediately reality started to collapse around me in a way that is indescribable in words. No words could describe this ever. And suddenly I was a shaman, sitting in a shaman's hut in front of a candle, using the same substance, somewhere in the middle of the jungle. I only know that because I saw out of the door of the hut into the jungle. And then I kept jumping generations. I was the shaman, then another shaman, female shaman, male shaman, female shaman, male shaman, female shaman, and so on and so forth, all the way through time. The jungle outside kept changing, the contents of the hut kept changing a bit, but it was the same hut, and I was at the same place, over and over again through all different times. Until I was myself again. I kept going through this line, one to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, until I was myself. And then again, and again, and again. And then I asked the question. And as soon as I asked that question, I got an answer so incredibly direct and unmistakable. It was as simple as if you asked me something and I said, yes, this is going to happen. Or, for instance, no, this will not happen. And it kept saying, and it kept telling me this answer in German and in English. So my native language and the language I used to talk to that particular friend of mine. And it kept saying it and saying it over and over again, and kept getting faster and more insistent on it, because I was fighting it a bit, because I didn't want to accept that answer, because I didn't want to transfer the answer to her, because I knew that it wasn't a positive answer and not at all what you wanted to hear. But as I said to her before, the friend of mine being her, that I was going to tell her exactly what the plant was telling me, or what the experience was telling me. Unchanged, undiluted, as bold as it is, just what it told me, or what it was going to tell me. And then I gave up. I said, okay, this is what you told me. I will talk to her. I will tell her exactly what you said to me. And at that moment, it got lighter, and it seemed to be satisfied with what I essentially accepted. And at that point, reality seemed to slowly build itself up again. And again, I was sitting there in my room, in front of the candle, still being a fair bit dizzy, and not really able to stand up, but that resided in about 5 minutes, as the substance itself only takes about, or the experience itself only takes about 10 minutes, 6 to 10 minutes, plus 5 minutes to gain full motor control over your limbs again. But this experience was so incredibly real. It is just incredible just thinking about it right now. It's I'm a skeptic about things like this. That's why I think that I'm well suited for researching things like that, because I don't take this as the absolute truth just because I've experienced it, but I haven't found any explanation close to something that sounds even remotely true to what or to explain what was going on there, except for this being actually what happened. Because I saw things that I've never seen before, like the shaman's hut and the jungle outside, and the items that were, or the furniture items and the rugs that were laid underneath the candle on the ground where I was sitting. All these things kept changing in such an incredible speed as I was advancing through generations after generations, that I know no state of mind that can produce such vivid and fast changing pictures naturally without the use of any substance. And I know no state except the psychedelic state at all that lets you see pictures and things that you have not seen ever before in your life in any way like that. This substance is something extremely and incredibly powerful. And I get why people were using this back in the day, or they are even using it today still, but back in the day the traditions were far stronger and widely distributed, to divinate the future, to find lost things, because you can just ask it. That's the thing. I mean, Terence McKenna talked about this with mushrooms. Well, I haven't gone that deep into psilocybin yet, but you can just go into this experience and ask it something, and it will deliver an answer, or at least to me it did. Because the weird thing is, I seem to be an anomaly in this, because most people that are talking about it seem to be only getting negative experiences out of it, or experiences so confusing that they become frightening. If you ask people that have done Salvia if they want to do it again, they'll probably laugh at you and say, never again in my whole life would I do this. Because it's so scary and so frightening and horrific. But I mean, I'm not saying I would do it right now or in the next few days, but I will certainly do it again someday. Because it's nowhere near negative for me at all. And the traditional use of this plant is not by being smoked. Traditionally, it is you take the leaves of the plant, and a few of them, I don't recall how many exactly right now, but you stack them over top of each other, roll them up to like a cigar, fold that in half once, and chew on it. And after the one is chewed, you don't spit it out, you just take the next one and put it into your mouth, and you repeat it many times over and over. And the room should always be dark when using this substance. Only one light source, maybe one candle. Please be careful where you put that candle, because if you're able to knock it over, you probably will, and you don't want to start a fire in that. I mean, you don't want to start a fire at all, but under the influence of that substance, you in no way would be able to put it out. So please be careful when you use this substance. And when chewed, or in this case, by being chewed, it is used sublingually. So you take up the substance via your mouth, not by swallowing it, and not by your intestines. The substance's effects last for about 40 to 50 minutes, like that. When smoked, it usually lasts only 6 to 10 minutes, 15 at most. But most people that seem to have the negative experiences, and all people have heard about it using it, seem to have smoked extracts of it. And I haven't used extracts. I have just used the normal plant material, which is strong in itself. I mean, all I described came just from that. I never have touched one of these extracts myself, although I'm very curious about how they might work. These extracts seem to be, I can't imagine what even times 5 of that experience would be. And some people are taking an extract that should enhance the experience by 80 times. Some even over 100 times. I can't imagine that at all. I mean, that there are no words to describe that's incredibly, that's the thought of that is frightening, to be honest. And I totally see why doses of that magnitude could leave you frightened by it. I probably will try it under legal circumstances in a place where it's legal at some point in my life, because I'm very curious about it. But that probably won't be any day soon in the future. Um, but this plant really, really almost screams about being researched further and be put under the spotlight of being talked about. And that's why I'm doing this right now, because I think this plant gets far too little credit, and mostly negative credit at that. So I wanted to talk about it, like, from my point of view, because I've as I said many times in this talk before, the most things I've heard about it were negative, and I don't see it like that at all. So I hope you got something out of this talk. I hope you learned maybe. I hope you maybe learned something new. I will be returning in the future with some other topics and other talks about other psychoactive and psychedelic plants and substances, shamanism, maybe some philosophical themes, or just in general talks about ethnobotany, ethnopharmacology, ethnomycology, ethnology in general. Um, yeah, I hope you liked this talk. I hope you could take something out of it, and feel free to share it with your friends. I'm sure the next talks will be getting better and better along the slow road of advancement of being able to talk publicly, if you know what I mean. But I think I'm getting better at it, because I'm getting used to the fact of talking into a device to share it with people and not talking directly, and also the translation of my native language into English, which shouldn't be as big of a problem as it sometimes is. But I I advise you to do your own research on any substance you are thinking of consuming, and I obviously do not condone the uneducated use of any psychoactive substance, because it all of this takes research, and only a bit of personal research at that. Most of the substances I will be talking about are not physically dangerous, but they can be mentally dangerous to the untrained mind. So you should really put your mind into this matter, research it for yourself, spend like a few days researching a substance to be sure what you're gonna get yourself into. So this will be the end of the talk for this time. I hope you I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to share. Feel free to share it, so other people can hear about this, and especially this positive point of view about this rarely talked about substance. Feel free to leave a like if you want. I will surely be returning in the future, as I really feel the need to address these topics and talk about them. So I hope you have a good day. I've been Gregor Pfaffinger. Goodbye.